We just had some new elections, so what did we learn? Well, no House primary race is going to resolve every issue for the whole country. But these New York primaries last night had a pretty clear trend line with voters greenlighting more of Zohran Mamdani's progressive push. In fact, 3 Mamdani-endorsed Democratic socialists, who often struggle in prior elections to win over older or less liberal Democratic voters, all 3 won last night. And 2 of the races actually ousted current incumbent Democratic lawmakers. Now remember, statistically, primaries usually do not oust the people who already have the job, and they have the advantage of name recognition, usually establishment money. They usually beat the lesser-known candidates. When this happens, though, when they're ousted, people take notice. Remember, that's how AOC rose to prominence, another New York liberal, along with Mamdani himself. And he was unknown 2 years ago. The now surging mayor drawing a line from his upstart win to these brand new faces.
We are showing there is a new path for politics in our city and in our country. We are showing that last June, a year ago tomorrow, was not an anomaly. It was not the end. It was the beginning.
Mamdani saying his win was no anomaly. Now, you could see why a politician, of course, would want to cede that idea and connect himself to other victories here. But many in the media, and certainly the New York tabloids, they love a big, clear narrative. So today you can cue the new headlines crowning Mamdani a party kingmaker, including in the kind of political paper of record, the Washington Post, reporting on how his endorsees share both his progressive economic platform and his fairly strong position on basically ending American support for Israel. And that's a shift from the traditional Democratic Party platform, which supported a 2-state solution. And supporting 2 states has historically meant support for both Israel and a Palestinian homeland. And the issues are complex, and 3 New York races do not ensure Mamdani is now a national kingmaker. Doesn't mean that he would help. He might even hurt someone in a more conservative Democratic primary in some states. But on the evidence, it does suggest that he has this motivated and enduring base willing to turn out. And if you want to do apples to apples, that, a popular mayor with a motivated base, is already above the past 2 Democratic mayors of New York. Nationally, the party is debating the implications of all this. And this is a Democratic Party, which, remember, is currently already led by 2 New Yorkers, and depending on how you count, of course, 2 members of minority groups, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, who was speaking about this today by emphasizing the party's potential unity.
I don't think we're on opposite pages. You can ask him whether he thinks we're on opposite pages. He doesn't believe we're on opposite pages. There are multiple races that I've gotten involved in supporting House Democratic incumbents, which is what I have done as leader and will continue to do. So with respect to races where he may have endorsed a different candidate, we have agreed to strongly disagree, and we put it into the hands of the people of New York to decide what's the best path forward.
Jeffries there emphasizing the structural point that he leads the House Democratic Caucus. So, by definition, he works with and supports the members of that caucus who were these incumbents I mentioned, and that the mayor, who structurally is not a part of the House, obviously, has a little more freedom if he wants to buck the party and pick the insurgents. And that is true. In other words, it's a true defense. But it doesn't capture the entire tension here, because Mamdani could be in the House, and we might still expect him to be a bit more of a rabble-rouser, certainly pushing for people who aren't just card-carrying Democrats. That's what being a kind of democratic socialist or liberal on economic issues, that's what that means. And remember, it was also in New York where AOC went at a Democratic incumbent, creating a lot of buzz and ultimately ousting that longtime party leader.
Even for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a stunning result.
She accomplished what many thought impossible, beating out 10-time incumbent Congressman Joe Crowley.
And a major upset for one of the highest-ranking Democrats in the House of Representatives.
Here's the important part. He's number 4 on the Democratic leadership chart. Crowley had aspirations to someday be Speaker of the House.
The shakeup raises new questions about the future of the Democratic Party and its leaders in the Trump era.
That Trump era has continued, of course. AOC was an immediate star in Congress, a big progressive, doing things that did draw national attention, including her work with Bernie Sanders. But if you compare her to some of these figures today, they're different people, and we'll have to watch what happens. But some of the early worry that she would, as this outsider, be too much of a rebel didn't really play out. She worked closely with Democratic leadership on many issues where they could find common ground. She buried the hatchet very quickly with Nancy Pelosi and showed that she understood how to govern, not just campaign. She, of course, supported the national ticket, something that you would expect from Mamdani as well. And that is just on the intramurals. On the big picture, if you move out of some of these primaries, Democratic voters look more motivated for the midterms. You can see the gap there. Polling also shows, when you ask voters today, a lot could change, but right now, more say they plan to vote for Democrats by about that 5-point margin. The other big dynamic here is not just who's an incumbent versus a challenger. It's not just who's more conservative versus who's more liberal. Economic issues and affordability, though, those are issues that go well beyond just what liberals want these days. There is something else looming over all of this. What happened in New York, and why do you argue that generational change is also part of the filter, not just left-right?
Yeah, I think that there is a sense that, hey, those are just a bunch of lefty New Yorkers. It has no national implications. I think that these elections and the popularity that Zohran Mamdani has shown in New York does have national implications for the country. There is a tremendous desire in this country for generational change. There is a sense that we now have a literal swamp, as AOC said, in Washington, D.C. The status quo is not working. Capitalism has not worked for a lot of younger Americans. It has been quite a long time since younger Americans have seen a capitalist economy that has worked for them. All of these things have led to a sense that the status quo is not working and that we have a politics that is run by a gerontocracy that has put us in this place. I mean, it's no coincidence that in 2016, Donald Trump became the oldest man ever elected president. That record was beaten by Joe Biden. And then Donald Trump came back and beat that record again. And that is a big part of where we are. Mamdani represents the opposite of that. He is youthful, he is energetic, he is exciting. The fact that he's Muslim and he's socialist also, I think, gives him a countercultural feel. I mean, seeing all those old people freak out about him only makes him seem rebellious to young people and something cool that they want to attach themselves to. Young people do want to attach themselves to that. You know, and young people are not afraid of change. They never have been. I mean, I remember, not that I remember, but I remember reading a line from Wordsworth about the French Revolution. And he said, "Blessed was that dawn to be alive, but to be young was very heaven." I mean, change is not frightening to young people. Young people embrace it. They want the change. They want the revolution. They want the new ways of doing things and new ways of doing politics.
Jay, I don't know if anyone's quoting Wordsworth about the French Revolution over on Fox News tonight. Okay, you might have to only pull up here for that. But here's how they did sound on Fox. Take a listen.
Let us be very clear. The so-called democratic socialist movement in this party, it's not a good thing. Now, you're looking at a group of people, they are driven by envy, resentment.
A vote for any Democrat anywhere for any office is empowering a party that wants to strip this country to the bone, to take away our security, our defense, our way of life. Tonight brings really terrifying evidence of just, as you said, how far this cancer has spread and is spreading.
It appears that, you know, a pretty scary transformation is now fully underway in the Democratic Party.
Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, they just simply, they're old men who simply don't get it. You know, they look like Mr. Wilson yelling at Dennis the Menace to get off his lawn. But one guy who does get it, I would argue, is Donald Trump. You know, game recognizes game. You know, he has actually been very complimentary towards Mamdani. He understands his appeal.
Striking, yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I will also say is it's not just Mamdani. You know, you see it with AOC, but you also see it with certain people on the center left. Look at the viral success of Jon Ossoff and of Pete Buttigieg. I mean, they appeal to the exact same things. Generational change, demographic change. Jon Ossoff is Jewish. Pete Buttigieg is gay. They're not doing your father's politics. They have dynamic communication styles, and they're huge viral successes as well. So it's not just about the ideology. It's about speaking to change and embodying that change yourself.
And you're discussing also style and substance. And the Democrats have worried that they, for many elections, have been too much on substance and white papers and Washington language. But then when met with some of these people, and maybe some are too far and they'll burn out. I mean, not all of the squad kept their seats, but AOC did emerge as a generational talent. Do you think here the style is important for even the concerned establishment Democrats to notice?
Yeah, and I think one person who actually, I will say, did notice it way back in 24 was Jim Clyburn. He went to Joe Biden and said, my entire career, I have believed substance beats style. But Joe, right now, for the first time, I think style beats substance. And Donald Trump is beating you. That's what Jim Clyburn recognized and understood. And I think that the fact is we live in a new age with a new messaging environment, and the people like Mamdani, like Ossoff, like Buttigieg, like AOC, who embrace that new environment, they are going to thrive and succeed. You know, another thing I will say, it's no coincidence this all happened after the Knicks victory. Zohran Mamdani draped himself in that Knicks victory, and he understood what too few Democrats understand, which is the enormous political power of sports. Donald Trump understands that. Boy, he's at every sporting event, and it does work for him. Zohran understood it as well.